humanity is under attack. It is positioned to be up against the greatest threat it has ever faced in its entire existence. Although there are many challenges ahead of us to tackle within our own country, we must finally come together to confront the very real and absolute danger that is climate change. I believe fundamentally that despite the challenges that pose great difficulty for this country, such as the major threat of ISIS, an economy that is rigged, which is contributing to the dwindling of our middle class, and the maintaining of a corrupt campaign finance system.
I'm self-funded, as you know.
The point is, climate change is real, and we must address it now before it is too late. Allow me to take a moment of your time with you, specifically discussing how it affects our oceans, and to talk to you about the millionaires and billionaires who want to perpetuate the cycle. Why the oceans, you ask? Well, because if you're feeling the burn, then you need a place to cool off. Although the beach is not my favorite because it generally gives me sunburns on the top of my head, but I digress. Let us begin. Now, with respects to marine life, the WWF Global says that one of the most visually dramatic effects of climate change is coral bleaching, a stress response caused by high water temperatures that can lead to coral death. Recent years have seen widespread and severe coral bleaching episodes around the world, with coral mortality reaching to 70% in some regions.
Excuse me. We're gonna build a coral reef wall, and Mexico's gonna pay for it. It's gonna be great.
The WWF Global also says that after absorbing a large proportion of the carbon dioxide released by human activities, the oceans are becoming acidic. If it weren't for the oceans, the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere would be much higher. The effect could be that fish, squid, and other gilled marine animals may find it harder to breathe as the dissolved oxygen essential for their life becomes difficult to extract as water becomes more acidic. And shellfish, crabs, lobsters, and corals may find it more difficult to build their calcium carbonate shells. In some areas, calcium carbonate shells may even start to dissolve. Now, let's look at one of my favorite animals, polar bears. You know those cute and cuddly things in the Coca-Cola commercials, right? How are polar bears affected by climate change, you might ask? Polar Bears International has a lot to say on the matter. Polar bears have evolved for a life on the sea ice, which they rely on for reaching their seal prey. But the Arctic sea ice is rapidly diminishing due to a warming Earth affecting the entire Arctic ecosystem. From copiopods to seals to walruses, for polar bears, sea ice losses mean reduced access to food, drop in body condition, increase in cannibalism, and a loss of access to denning areas. Point being, no more polar bears means no more Coca-Cola commercials. And another thing about marine life that the oh, my hip!
I agree with everything Senator Sanders has to say. But my plans are more concrete. I've been tested, and my ideas are just so much better because I'm
Hillary Clinton.
Don't read my emails.
Excuse me. The Mexicans and the Chinese, they're harming the environment. And I'm gonna make America great again.
The Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change has just come out with a report that has some very hard truth revealing evidence that climate change is real and affecting us. Warming of the climate system is unequivocal, and since the 1950s, many of the observed changes are unprecedented over decades to millennia. The atmosphere and the oceans have warmed. The amounts of snow and ice have diminished, and sea level has risen.
China.
Moreover, the IPCC has this to say. Anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions have largely increased since the pre-industrial era, driven largely by the economic and population growth, and are now higher than ever. This has led to atmospheric concentrations of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide that are unprecedented in the last 800,000 years. Their effects, together with those of the anthropogenic drivers, have been detected throughout the climate system and are extremely likely to have been the dominant cause of the observed warming since the mid-20th century. We need to wake up, America. How is it that we are only now having this conversation?
We, America, we don't win anymore.
Look, I do not mean to belabor the point, but this is the biggest threat to the planet. Human influence on the climate system is clear, and recent anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases are the highest in history. Recent climate changes have had widespread impacts on human and natural systems. The facts are clear, people.
Let me be your leader.
In conclusion, I feel that I have presented enough evidence that any thinking, reasonable person can rationalize that this is the most serious problem that humanity has. And we cannot let divisiveness in this country by a handful of billionaires, i.e. Mr. Trump and his friends, the Koch brothers, ruin this country and ruin this planet. Establishment politics has got to go. Billionaires and millionaires are not going to control Congress anymore with their fossil fuel industry, special interests. Our children's futures, the future of the planet and our country,
Excuse me.
is of the most importance.
Excuse me.
And we have to come together
Excuse me.
and be united, not by party or by race or by culture or religion, but as people.
Excuse me.
And excuse you, Mr. Trump. If Donald Trump wants to propose ridiculous things like Mexico and China are only responsible for climate change, well, I have a proposal equally ridiculous for Donald Trump. I propose that we take Mr. Trump and his ideas and give him a one-way ticket and eject him into deep space where him and his ideas belong, not on this planet and not where we need to make a difference. Vote for Bernie Sanders.
I'm gonna make America great again.